Welcome back to Tuition Tonight and our OpenShift Masterclass. In this previous lesson, we learned what a pod is and how pods run our applications. But now we have an important problem. Imagine we have three pods. Pod A has one IP address, pod B has another, and pod C has other IP address. What happens if pod A is deleted and Kubernetes creates a replacement? The new pod can receive a completely different IP address. So, how can another application reliably find that pod? Should we manually track pod IP address? Absolutely not. Kubernetes gave us a much better solution, that is services. In this lesson, we are going to understand what a Kubernetes service is, why we need it, and how ClusterIP, node port, load balancer, and service discovery works. At the end, we will connect everything to a real enterprise banking example. Why do we need a service? The simple answer is that pods are temporary. Pods can restart, they can be rescheduled. When a pod is replaced, its IP address can change. For example, imagine a pod A is running at an IP 10.10.1.5. Now that pod is deleted and Kubernetes creates a replacement pod that is 10.10.1.99. If our application was connecting directly to 10.10.1.5, that connection is no longer reliable. This is where service comes in. The service provides a stable endpoint, the application communicates with the service, and the service takes care of reaching the appropriate pods behind it. So remember this simple concept. A stable service, dynamic pods. The pod can change, but the application does not need to constantly worry about those changes. Now, we know that a service needs to know which pod should receive traffic. But how does it actually find those pods? Kubernetes uses something called labels and selectors. Think of label as tags attached to pods. In our example, we have a service with the selector application equal banking. Pod 1 has the label app equals banking, so it matches. Pod 2 also matches, and pod 3 matches as well. But pod 4 has a different label, that is app equals database, so that pod is not selected by our service. This is a very important Kubernetes concept. The service doesn't need us to manually enter the IP address of every pod. Instead, it uses the selector to identify the pods that belongs to that service. So the simple formula is label identify the pods and selectors choose the matching pods. Now let's talk about the first and most common service type, that is ClusterIP. ClusterIP is the default cluster Kubernetes service type. Its main purpose is internal communication inside this cluster. Imagine we have a front-end application that needs to communicate with the back-end application. Instead of connecting directly to individual back-end pods, the front-end connects to the back-end service. That service has a stable virtual IP address. Behind the service, we have multiple back-end pods. If one pod goes down and another pod is created, the front end doesn't need to change anything. It continues communicating with the same service. Cluster IP is therefore idle for service to service communication inside the Kubernetes cluster. For example, front end equals back end equals back end pod. One important point is a normal cluster IP service is designed for cluster access rather than direct access from the outside the cluster. Next we have node port. As the name suggests, node port exposes a service through a port on the Kubernetes nodes. In this example, imagine an external user connects to a node IP using port 30080. The node port service receives that request and forwards the traffic towards the backend pods. Kubernetes node ports normally use the range from 30,000 to 32,767. Node port can be useful for simple external access, development and testing environments, and certain bare metal scenarios. But there's an important OpenShift points here. Node port is not normally the standard production entry point for web application in OpenShift. OpenShift provides routes for exposing application in a more appropriate production oriented way. And that actually goes to the topic of our next lecture. The third service type we are covering is load balancer. A load balancer service is commonly used when we need an externally reachable endpoint and our underlying infrastructure supports a cloud managed load balancer. Think about the flow. Internet traffic reaches the cloud load balancer. The load balancer forward traffic towards the Kubernetes services. The service then direct the request towards the unavailable backend ports towards the available backend port. The advantage is that application can have an external IP address or DNS name while the individual port IP address remain dynamic. This is commonly seen in cloud environments such as AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, with their infrastructure provides support for load balancer services. In OpenShift environments, however, routes are commonly used as the production web entry mechanism. So keep the distinction clear. ClusterIP, that is internal access, node port, that is node level external access, and load balancer, that is externally reachable load balance access. Service discovery and DNS. Now, let's talk about one of the most useful feature of Kubernetes networking, that is service discovery. The main idea is simple. Don't make your application depend directly on pod IP addresses. Imagine our front-end application needs to communicate with the backend. We could try to connect directly to the pod IP like 10.10.1.5 as shown on the screen. But remember that pod could be replaced and its IP could change. Instead, the front-end can communicate using a service name such as backend service. Kubernetes DNS can resolve the service name to the service's stable IP address, and the service then routes traffic to the appropriate backend pods. So the application does not need to know which pod is currently running. It only needs to know the service. This gives us a very powerful pattern. Service name, that is a stable discovery, and that goes to dynamic pods. And this is one of the reasons Kubernetes can manage constantly changing workload without breaking application communication. Now let's put everything we have learned together. Let's discuss the complete traffic flow. Imagine a customer accessing an application from the internet. The request first reaches the load balancer. From there, it reaches the OpenShift route. The route directs the request toward the appropriate service. The service then distributes the request to one of the available application pods. We might have pod 1, pod 2, and pod 3. All are running the same application. If one pod becomes unavailable, the application does not need to know its IP address or manually update its configuration. The service continues providing a stable endpoint while the underlying ports can change, and those application ports can then communicate with other enterprise components such as Kafka or a database. So remember this flow. Route exposes, service distributes, pods run the application. This is where the concepts from our previous lesson starts coming together. Let's make the more realistic with an enterprise banking example. Imagine a customer is using a mobile banking application. The request enters through the load balancer and reaches an OpenShift route. The route forwards the request to the customer service. Behind that service, we have multiple application pods. Maybe we have pod 1, pod 2, and pod 3. These pods can process requests while the service provides a stable endpoint in front of them. Now, imagine pods 2 needs to be replaced because we are deploying a new version. The service does not have to change. The application does not have to learn a new pod IP. And if we need more capacity, we can add more pods behind the same service. Those application components can communicate with systems such as Kafka, banking application, and databases. This architectures give us several important benefits. High availability because multiple pods can handle requests. Scalability because we can add more pods without changing the service endpoint. A stable endpoint because application communicates with the service rather than individual pod. And easier deployment because pods can replace independently. This is exactly why services are so important in enterprise Kubernetes and OpenShift environments. So let's quickly summarize what we have learned. A pods runs the application, a service provides a stable network to those pods, ClusterIP provides internal cluster accesses, node port provides node level external access, and load balancer provide an externally reachable load balance endpoint when supported by the infrastructure. And service discovery allow application to communicate using service names instead of depending directly on changing pod IP addresses. Now let's test your understanding. The first question: why do we need service if we already have pod? The second question: what is the default Kubernetes service type? Third question: what is the difference between cluster IP and node port? And finally, how does a service know which port should receive traffic? Pause this video and answer these questions before moving on. In our next lesson, we have the step and look specifically at OpenShift route and how they expose application to users. If you are following the OpenShift masterclass from beginning, make sure you are subscribed to Tuition tonight so you don't miss the next lesson. See you in the next one.